Imagine a road stretching across thousands of miles, a road not paved with asphalt, but with ideas, cultures, and the exchange of civilizations. A road that witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the spread of religions, and the birth of world-changing innovations. This road, known as the Silk Road, became one of the most influential and iconic trade routes in human history. This isn't just a story about trade, it's a story about human connection, about the complex web of relationships between people who lived in vastly different worlds. It's a story about how, despite geographic, cultural, and linguistic barriers, societies managed to engage in exchange of goods, of ideas, of beliefs, and even of diseases. From the bustling markets of China to the grand cities of Rome, the Silk Road carried far more than just silk. Over the next hour, we'll explore the origins, the culture, the economy, and the politics of this legendary route, and uncover the stories of those who journeyed across it. The origins of the Silk Road. To understand the birth of the Silk Road, we must first understand the geography that defined it. The Silk Road spanned a massive and diverse landscape, stretching over 7,000 miles from the heart of China, across the mountains and deserts of Central Asia, through Persia, and into the Mediterranean world. But how did this extraordinary network of paths come to be? The Han Dynasty of China, which ruled from 206 BCE to 220 CE, played a key role in the formation of the Silk Road. During this time, China was thriving, and one of its most coveted products was silk. Silk was unlike anything seen in the West, smooth, light, and shimmering. But it wasn't just a luxury item. In Chinese culture, silk symbolized wealth, status, and even spirituality. By the 2nd century BCE, silk had become so valuable that it was being used as a form of currency in China. But China faced a dilemma. Despite its wealth, the empire was largely isolated from the rest of the world. They lacked access to the horses, wool, and precious metals that neighboring regions could offer. The solution lay in opening up new trade routes to the west. In 138 BCE, Emperor Han Wudi sent his emissary, Zhong Qian, on a perilous mission to make contact with civilizations to the west and explore the possibility of trade. Zhong Qian's journey would take him over 13 years, through treacherous landscapes, captivity, and encounters with powerful nomadic tribes. What Zhong Qian discovered was astonishing, advanced civilizations that were unfamiliar to the Chinese but eager to trade. And so, the first seeds of the Silk Road were sown. But the term Silk Road is actually a modern invention, coined by the German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen in the 19th century. For the people of the ancient world, this wasn't a single road, but a complex web of routes that connected cities, villages, and empires. East meets West, cultural exchange. Trade along the Silk Road was about much more than goods. The Silk Road became a conduit for ideas, religious beliefs, artistic influences, and even technological innovations. In a way, the Silk Road was the first form of globalization. But how exactly did these ideas spread? As merchants and travelers moved between cities, they didn't just exchange goods like silk, spices, and precious metals, they also exchanged knowledge. One of the most significant examples of this was the spread of Buddhism. Originating in India around the 5th century BCE, Buddhism began to travel northward along the Silk Road. Buddhist monks made their way to Central Asia and eventually into China. Along the way, Buddhist teachings were influenced by other local cultures and belief systems. The famous cave temples of Dunhuang, located on the edge of the Gobi Desert, are a testament to how Buddhist art and philosophy flourished along the Silk Road. These caves, filled with vibrant murals and statues, showcase a fusion of Indian, Persian, and Chinese styles. Religion wasn't the only idea spreading along the Silk Road. Scientific knowledge also traveled this route. The Chinese invention of papermaking, for example, transformed the intellectual landscape of the West. Before paper, most documents were written on parchment or papyrus, materials that were far more expensive and difficult to produce. When paper reached the Middle East, it revolutionized the way information was recorded and shared, particularly in the Islamic world. From there, the knowledge of papermaking spread into Europe, laying the groundwork for the Renaissance. Centuries later, the spread of art and architecture along the Silk Road is another fascinating aspect of this cultural exchange. In cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, local craftsmen incorporated elements from Persian, Indian, and Chinese designs into their work. This blending of artistic traditions led to unique and stunning architectural feats, many of which still stand today as a testament to the cultural vibrancy of the Silk Road. The politics of trade, empires, and power. Trade is rarely just about economics. Wherever wealth flows, so does political influence. The Silk Road became a geopolitical battleground where powerful empires vied for control over lucrative trade routes. Each empire that bordered the Silk Road sought to monopolize trade and expand its influence. Among the most powerful players were the Roman Empire, the Parthians, the Sassanids, the Byzantine Empire, and the Mongols. The Roman Empire had a voracious appetite for luxury goods, particularly Chinese silk. Roman aristocrats were willing to pay astronomical sums for the luxurious fabric, so much so that some Roman senators decried the silk trade as a drain on the empire's wealth. But the Romans never dealt directly with the Chinese. Instead, they traded through a series of intermediaries, including Persian and Central Asian merchants who managed the flow of goods between East and West. For empires like Persia, controlling sections of the Silk Road was vital not just for wealth, but for political leverage. The Persian Empire, situated at a strategic crossroads between East and West, taxed merchants and caravans traveling through its territory. Persian rulers used this wealth to strengthen their military and influence neighboring regions. The Sassanids, in particular, sought to outmaneuver the Romans and control the flow of goods. This rivalry between the Romans and the Persians often resulted in war, with control of trade routes as one of the primary objectives. Perhaps the most transformative period for the Silk Road came under the Mongol Empire in the 13th century. The Mongols, led by Genghis Khan and his successors, unified a vast stretch of territory from China to Europe, ensuring the safety of merchants along the Silk Road. Under Mongol rule, the Silk Road experienced a golden age of stability and prosperity. The Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace, allowed trade to flourish like never before. With the protection of Mongol troops, merchants could travel more freely without fear of bandit attacks. However, the success of the Mongols also came with its own dark side. The Mongol conquests, marked by their brutal military campaigns, left devastation in their wake. Entire cities were razed and populations massacred. Yet, despite the violence, the Mongol Empire was remarkably tolerant of different cultures and religions, allowing a level of cultural exchange that had never been seen before. The economics of the Silk Road, a global marketplace. The Silk Road created a global marketplace that spanned continents and linked distant economies. It's important to remember that while silk may have been the most famous product traded along this route, it was by no means the only one. Spices from India, pearls from the Persian Gulf, horses from Central Asia, and furs from Siberia were all exchanged along the Silk Road. In return, the West sent gold, silver, and woolen textiles. But trade along the Silk Road wasn't just about luxury items. Everyday goods such as grains, salt, and tools also traveled these routes. Central Asia became a hub for the exchange of agricultural products, with innovations in farming techniques passing from one region to another. In some ways, the Silk Road functioned like a circulatory system, pumping goods and knowledge through the veins of the ancient world. However, trade along the Silk Road was far from easy. Merchants had to cross inhospitable deserts, scale high mountain passes, and brave bandits and harsh weather conditions. The Taklamakan Desert in western China, one of the most dangerous sections of the route, was notorious for its deadly sandstorms and shifting dunes. Many merchants never made it through alive. Those who did survive, however, stood to make a fortune. The decline and legacy of the Silk Road. By the late 15th century, the Silk Road began to decline. The rise of maritime trade routes, particularly after European explorers like Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus discovered sea routes to Asia, dramatically reduced the importance of overland trade. Why risk the perils of desert and mountain crossings when goods could be transported by ship? The European age of exploration shifted the center of global trade to the seas, effectively ending the dominance of the Silk Road. But the legacy of the Silk Road did not disappear. The cultural, religious, and technological exchanges that took place along these routes left an indelible mark on the world. The languages, religions, and artistic styles that flowed between East and West shaped societies for centuries to come. Even today, the influence of the Silk Road can be seen in the architecture of ancient cities, the spread of religions like Buddhism and Islam, and the shared. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past that continue to shape our future.